Hello, and welcome to Manga Mommies.
A podcast where we chat about, you guessed it, mangas, and occasionally our lives as parents.
Nice to meet you all. I'm Kyo,
And I'm Kel.
and we are your host on the show. We hope you're having a great Monday. So please, would you kindly get a drink, take a seat, and let's chat. Welcome back, everyone. Today we'll be reviewing November's manga of the month, Spy Family.
And we also have a special guest. Hey, Bean, you want to introduce yourself?
Yo, I'm Beam. I'm 12. I like fishing, outdoors, and stuffs. Video games, especially Red Dead Redemption 2. It's a masterpiece. I love manga and anime, especially Kami Can't Communicate. Easily my favorite manga. I love Chinese food, and apparently I'm forced to read I Am Fluent in Sarcasm. Thank you, Mother.
I'm sure she didn't mean anything bad by it, Bean.
Thank you for inviting me on here. I'm excited to talk about the manga of the month, SpyxFamily.
We're glad to have you, especially since I'm sick, and my voice keeps cutting out randomly, so it's probably going to be mostly you and your mom today on the show. Take it away, Kelz.
All right. So, I guess for those of us who need a little bit of a refresher, I'll reiterate a little bit of what SpyxFamily is. So, SpyxFamily was written and illustrated by Tetsuya Endo. It is a shonen. The publisher is Viz Media for the English publisher, and it is in the Shonen Jump magazine. Its original run is from March 25th, 2019 till present, and it currently has 14 volumes. The plot of this manga: in order to maintain the state of peace between the rival nations of Westalius and Ostania, the Westalian agent, codenamed Twilight, is tasked with spying on Donovan Desmond, a leader of the National Unity Party within Ostania. But Desmond is notoriously reclusive, and the only way Twilight can get close to him is to enroll a child in the same private school as Desmond's son Damien, and pose as a fellow parent. To accomplish this, he creates the alias of Lloyd Forger, adopts a young orphan girl named Anya, and marries a woman named Yor Breyer. However, unbeknownst to him, Anya can read minds, and Yor is in fact a professional assassin known as the Thorn Princess. Neither Lloyd nor Yor are aware of each other's true identities, or that Anya knows their true professions. The family later takes in a dog with precognitive abilities, who they name Bond. Despite all of this, and Twilight's occasional lapses in common sense due to years of spy work, he tries to perfect the role of father and husband to carry out his mission. Bean, what did you think of this manga?
This manga is probably one of my favorites. I personally just love the premise of everyone just being in such secrecy and yet still having to be so close to each other. It's incredibly just interesting to me.
That is fair. That is one of the funny things that I find too. There's a lot of comedic relief between everybody trying to be so secretive and yet so intertwined. What about you, Kyo? You have any points on this one?
I haven't gotten to read too far into it, honestly. I had a lot of stuff going on and I just wasn't able to pick it up. I did watch some of the anime just to get a little bit of fresher from what I did read. From my understanding, it pretty much follows pretty closely with the manga. I think the character Twilight is kind of funny. He's just like, "Oh, I'm the best thing ever." And then it's like, "Actually, I'm not. I'm freaking out."
Yeah. I do like how the manga tends to go in these arcs too, where you
Mhm.
have kind of like almost these distinctive storylines through it, everything. So, you have, say, the Eden Academy arc where Anya manages to enroll in this prestigious academy. She's assigned to Cecile Hall and she's trying to befriend Donovan Desmond's son. And at the same time, she ends up befriending this rich girl named Becky Blackbell. So that becomes a whole thing. Then you have the State Security Service arc with the enemy who's like the greatest enemy of Wise, the spy agency that Twilight works for, and they begin to like start making waves near the family. And at the same time, Yor's brother, Yuri, finds out about her marriage and plans a surprise visit to the house. And now she's like all panicked because she's trying to be the best wife. And so it's these kind of like building arcs where everybody's under tension, but they can't confide in each other. And I find that to be really amusing too.
The fact that her brother has like a crush on her is kind of weird.
Yeah, that's one of those things that I kind of put up to like borderline Stockholm syndrome because of, their parents kind of disappearing out of the picture fairly quickly, and him kind of being subjected to like her terrible cooking and her trying to be a parent to him because he was so much younger than her and he thinks everything's great, and it's not as great as as he thinks, but he doesn't know any better.
Yeah.
So, there's all that. And then you have your as the Thorn Princess who goes off on her own side missions. And one of the arcs is that she receives a mission to protect like this person and her son from a group of assassins aboard this like Princess Lorelei cruise ship. But at the same point, she ends up discovering that Anya and Lloyd won tickets to go on the same cruise ship. So she's trying to do her job and trying to hide her identity from her family, where she's married to this guy, and chaos becomes evident really, really quickly.
Yeah, to me, I'm just like, tell everyone everything. The end.
It would have been over very quickly, and they probably wouldn't have been very good spies and assassins, I think, if that was the case.
I guess.
There are definitely like a couple of things about the manga that I really do enjoy as well. Things like the way they pass codes between the agents. I find that to be really unique from the other mangas and anime that I've seen so far, like switching newspapers with an old man or numerology being ciphers rather than just here's a note and burn it Inspector Gadget style.
Right. Yeah, that is
So
interesting to me.
yeah, so I found that to be kind of cool. And then how Anya, because she knows that Twilight is a spy, but she can't bring it up that she knows because then she reveals that she's telepathic. And because of that, she's trying to get him to like secretly be a spy without him catching on to the fact that she knows he's a spy. Like finding his spy gear really early on and sending out what she thinks is a fake message, but it's not a fake message. And it ends up being more of a taunt. And then chaos ensues because of that. And the fight scenes I find are really interesting too. Like they're enough to keep your attention, but they're not so crazy that it seems like it is unrealistic. So I like that as well.
Yeah, the fight scenes do bind a lot with a lot of other spy movies and spy shows I've seen. So
Hmm.
who was it again that wrote this? Sua?
Tatsuya Endo.
Yeah. They had to have done their research in order for the fight scenes to go as smoothly as possible with that on the
Yeah.
point of being a spy.
So, Bean, what did you think about the scene where they take Anya to the castle and he has to battle his way through and act like the spy in the TV show that she likes?
Personally, I found it both like adorable and I could feel sympathetic for Lloyd, I guess I can say, because he's just trying to do his job and yet here he is spending all of his agency's money on renting out a castle, getting all the agents he can to come over and battle to the death, quote unquote, for Princess Anya. I did find it incredibly hilarious though, the entire scene, especially at the end when he has to fight the quote unquote witch, was it? Where he just has to battle his drunken wife.
Or the part in the hot air balloon where one of the questions was, what does Anya want right now? And he has to
Obviously
figure it
water.
out.
It's obviously water. She was thirsty.
And he has to figure out what she wants. And if he gets it wrong or he gets questions wrong, he has to put on the gloves and the mask and everything to look exactly like the spy that she obsesses over on TV from the spy show. Like, there are definitely points where the humor is really there. And I think that it's kind of cool. Were there any other parts of the manga that you really liked, Bean?
I did really enjoy how the last current episode for SpyxFamily, if you watched the actual anime, the last episode of season 2, you get to see this stone cold, never reacting spy to anything laugh at the sight of his dog wet and droopy. I just found it hilarious how no matter what happens, Lloyd will not laugh. If anything, he will fake laugh, he will do anything. But the sight of his dog being wet brings him almost to tears laughing. And I just find that absolutely hilarious.
What do you think about all the chaos between Bond the dog and Anya? Because, he's precognitive, he can see the future, and she can read minds and she can read his mind.
Personally, I think it's really cute and adorable how she rides him around like a horse everywhere, and how they're basically just siblings at that point. And eventually, later on in the episodes, she creates with all her stuffed animals in Bond like her own little spy agency, and she goes on like this one fake mission with all of her stuffed animals with her parents behind her and everything, having to carry around the animals, acting like they were agents talking to Anya.
That is pretty cute.
Yeah.
I do think that she is one of the more flushed out side characters in a way, where she's not just like miscellaneous child. Like she's got her own struggles, she's got her own things going on. And at one point, when she realizes that Lloyd has to go off on this mission, and the dog is like, "Oh, your family's," he kind of gives Anya this vision of like, "You're gonna lose your dad, you're gonna lose Twilight, like something bad's gonna happen." And her and this dog go off on this adventure to find this room and save him and everything else. And, she kind of panics when she realizes that there's a bomb in this room. And the minute the door opens, like the building's gonna go sky high. And she tries to draw a bomb with ketchup on the door, but it doesn't look like a bomb. It's kind of cute. Like there's a lot of things where she's really trying. So I think this is definitely a manga and an anime that I would heavily recommend. It's pretty lighthearted. It's got its moments where you can feel really intense, but it's not intense to the point where it's uncomfortable to watch anything. It's definitely a more family focused manga.
I mean, I gotta go and, finish out to catch up with everybody. But I knew you and Bean were pretty ahead when it comes to it, so I figured you ought to be taking over most of the podcast today. Plus, I'm sick, so I'm trying not to kill everyone with my voice that keeps going in and out.
So yeah, I do think that it is a wholesome family manga that is definitely worth a read, and I do recommend it. I think that there are a lot of points where it's fantastic to pick it up and it's engaging, but it's not to the point where it's like uncomfortable or that you can't put it down. So I do have a couple interesting little points when I was doing some research on a little bit about this manga that I thought were kind of cool. Some extra fun facts, if you will,
Ooh, I like me some facts.
and snacks.
Yes.
The map of Westalius and Ostania that are actually shown at the start of the manga are identical to the real world geography of West Germany and East Germany during the Cold War era.
Ooh.
So I thought that was kind of neat. The newspaper that Lloyd reads on the train features real life events that occurred in 2018, like Japan lowering the age of adulthood to 18 and mentioning former US President Donald Trump.
Hmm.
And the PIN number for Lloyd's room is 6110, which can be pronounced as Lloyd in Japanese. So I thought those were kind of some fun little tidbits that I found.
Yeah,
Because when in doubt, trivia.
pretty much. Like me some fun facts. Any predictions, you two, on what direction it'll go in the future?
I do have a quick prediction on a bit of art I've seen for season 3. Season 3, if I remember correctly, I've seen some art for what it's gonna look like a tad bit, and my theory is it's gonna show us a bit more in depth onto how Anya got her, mind reading powers and her origin, because all we got before that, I think one thing referencing her being with like scientists, and that was like first 10 episodes, I think. Not even.
Yeah.
And so I do believe that the third season is going to take place more or less showing us what it was like when Anya was like in the lab. I'm assuming when all that was, for example, when they got Bond in the later episodes, we learned he was from a failed project, Project Apple. So maybe season 3 will go more in depth on whatever project Anya was a part of, and maybe we'll see more of like her fellow telepaths.
Maybe.
It's an interesting take. I can definitely see that happening. What do you think about whether or not this sort of ragtag family unit might stay together after the assignment? Because I feel like they're going to bond so close and eventually figure out each other's secrets, because there's no way you can go that long living with somebody and not figure it out, especially when you have Yor that instinctively will do ninja-y assassin things, even though she's very clumsy, but will tend to do things that are polar opposite to that. Or Lloyd coming home absolutely bruised and beat up because he got beat up on a mission, but he's supposed to be like a psychiatrist.
Yeah.
Well, no, I don't think it's that yours clumsy. It's more that she's a complete powerhouse. Like, for example, in one of the later episodes, she tries playing tennis with a agent. I think her name was Sylvia or Fiona, I forget which one. But she was gonna play tennis with her because, think they were competing or something to do with Lloyd, if I remember correctly. But what ends up happening is Yor serves. She hits it with her tennis racket, looks like she misses, and you realize she cut up the ball into like 50 bits just with one swing. I don't think it's that she's clumsy, it's just that, she's a bulldozer inside a woman's body.
Yeah, point. Look at when she tried to cook, all the cuts on her hands and everything else, or her dropping things from time to time because she can, or tripping over things from time to time. Like, she still has that like clumsy, really innocent, lackadaisical side of her. And then it's kind of like a switch gets flipped, and all of a sudden you've got, the Thorn Princess, you've got this assassin that is just this powerhouse who seems to almost turn off and on like a whim. So I think it'll be interesting to see, inevitably, for them to round out this story when it is finished, that everybody will kind of stay together and there's going to be that sort of like world peace. Like, kind of my hope with all of it is that's what's going to happen. But I don't know if that's what's going to happen or not, because I've had high hopes for mangas in the past that it wraps up so nice because it's just presented so nicely on a platter, and then they just chuck the whole platter in the fire and the world implodes. So I don't know how it's going to go.
I do enjoy that, for example, in the movie, they go into a bigger mission and it's really cute.
So, I mean, I know you haven't read too much of it, Kyo, but what are your kind of final thoughts? Where do you think it's going to end up?
I think it's going to end up being probably a lot of trial and error at the end. Probably a lot of will they stay as a family, or would it be better for them to split up? And I'm sure that's going to be a lot of back and forth toward the end. I know that there's supposedly a will they, won't they love situation happening with the two, quote, married couple.
Married people don't love each other.
Well, in theory, they're supposed to. Jeez. I'm over here, like, trying not to die for the 1000th time.
I know, you're so sick.
I know, it's terrible. It's been bad.
That's why you've had to listen to my ugly voice for most of this episode.
Yeah, y'all are fine.
But overall, I definitely think that this is fun manga to read, and it is definitely something that is still evolving. If anybody has read it, what are your predictions? What do you think is going to happen? So,
Yeah. And pretty much, I think that unless there was any other final thoughts, that's pretty much what covers today. Thank you again, Bean, for coming in and giving us your insight of the manga of the month, as well as your predictions of what you think is going to happen.
and a round of applause for our first ever guest on the show. Good job, buddy.
Now get out! Much appreciated.
If you made it this far in the episode, we want to say thank you. We couldn't do this without your support. If you'd like to subscribe and become an official Manga Mommies member, the link will be in the show notes. For Manga of the Month, the PDF, copy, or free website will be located below. If you feel up to it, like, subscribe, or share our podcast so we can find more people just like you. We hope you have a great rest of your day, whatever time that happens to be, and we can't wait to see you next week.
Stay tuned, and thanks for listening.